musical artist in the country at the moment and dazzling to look at. She was 19 years old and had had a meteoric rise in the last 2 years due to her consistent hits. Her recent Grammy was the icing on the cake, and Sarah was grateful she was still willing to do their benefit for free. Her greatest fear had been that Melanie would cancel at the last minute. With a donated performance, a lot of stars and singers dropped out hours before they were expected to show up. But Melanie's agent had sworn she would be there. It was promising to be an exciting evening, and the press were covering the event in force. The committee had even managed to corral a few stars to fly up from LA and attend, and all the local socialites had bought tickets. For the past 2 years, it had been the most important and productive benefit in San Francisco, and, everyone said, the most fun to attend. Sarah had started the benefit as a result of her own experience with the neonatal unit, which had saved her daughter, Molly, 3 years ago, when she was born 3 months premature. She was Sarah's first baby. During the pregnancy, everything seemed fine. Sarah looked and felt fabulous, and at 32, she assumed she wouldn't have any problems, until she went into labor one rainy night and they couldn't stop it. Molly was born the next day and spent 2 months in an incubator in the neonatal ICU, with Sarah and her husband Seth standing by. Sarah had been at the hospital day and night, and they had saved Molly with no ill effects or resulting damage. She was now a happy, bouncy 3-year-old, ready to start preschool in the fall. Sarah's second baby, Oliver, Ollie, had been born the previous summer without any problems. He was a delicious, chubby, gurgling 9-month-old now. Her children were the joy of Sarah's existence and her husband's. She was a full-time mom, and her only other serious activity was putting on this benefit every year. It took a monumental amount of work and organization, which she was good at. Sarah and Seth had met at Stanford Business School 6 years before, which had brought them both out from New York. They married as soon as they graduated and stayed on in San Francisco. Seth had gotten a job in Silicon Valley, and just after Molly's birth, he had started his own hedge fund. Sarah had decided not to join the workforce. She got pregnant with Molly on their wedding night and wanted to stay home with their babies. She had spent 5 years working on Wall Street in New York as an analyst before going to business school at Stanford. She wanted to take a few years off now to enjoy motherhood full-time. Seth had done so well with his hedge fund that there was no reason for her to go back to work. At 37, Seth had already made a considerable fortune and was one of the brightest young stars in the heavens of the financial community in both San Francisco and New York. They had bought a beautiful large brick house overlooking the bay in Pacific Heights and filled it with important contemporary art: Calder, Ellsworth Kelly, de Kooning, Jackson Pollock, and a handful of promising unknowns. Sarah and Seth were thoroughly enjoying their life in San Francisco. It had been easy for them to move since Seth had lost his parents years before, and Sarah's had moved to Bermuda, so their family ties to New York were no longer strong. It was obvious to everyone on both coasts that Sarah and Seth were there to stay, and they were a wonderful addition to the business and social scenes of the city. A rival hedge fund had even offered Sarah a job, but she had no desire to do anything except spend her time with Oliver and Molly, and Seth when he was free. He had just bought a plane, a G5, and flew to LA, Chicago, Boston, and New York often. They had a golden life that only got better year by year. Although she and Seth had both grown up in comfortable circumstances, neither of them had had the extravagant life they had now. It worried Sarah a little from time to time that maybe they were spending too much money, with a fabulous house in Tahoe in addition to their city house, and their own plane. But Seth insisted they were fine. He said that the kind of money he was making was meant to be enjoyed, and there was no question that he did. Seth drove a Ferrari, and Sarah a Mercedes station wagon that was perfect for her with 2 kids, although she had an eye on the Range Rover that was going to be auctioned off that night. She had told Seth that she thought it was really cute, and most of all, it was for a good cause, one they both really cared about. After all, the neonatal unit had saved Molly's life. In a less high-tech, medically sophisticated hospital, their adorable 3-year-old wouldn't be alive today. It meant the world to Sarah to give back by organizing the benefit, which had been her idea. The committee turned an enormous profit over to them after the evening's expenses were paid. Seth had kicked things off for them with a $200,000 donation in both their names. Sarah was very proud of him. She always had been and still was. He was the star of her heavens, and even after 4 years of marriage and 2 children, they were very much in love. They were even thinking about trying for a 3rd baby.